Hello, my name is Keith All, and today is part 3 in my series of how pivot tables work in Excel 2016. And specifically for this tutorial, I'll be talking about the pivot tables areas. Now, when you create a pivot table, a dialog box will appear on your worksheet, and that dialog box will be the pivot table fields that you will use in order to create your pivot table. Now, within that dialog box, you will have what we call the pivot table areas. And there are 4 areas, and they are called rows area, values area, columns area, and filters area. In today's tutorial, I'll just discuss the rows area. Again, the pivot table contains 4 areas that you could drag from the fields area into the area and to create your report, or basically create your pivot table. Now in that dialog box that I was talking about, above here, which you'll see in a second, will be a list of your data fields that come from your data source or your table data. And as you grab one of those fields or one or more of those fields and you place it into this rows area down here, this pivot table will get generated. But only the rows area will get generated because you placed values into the rows value area. And again, when you grab a data field up here and you place it into this rows area here, it will generate this area only. Basically, it takes the unique values of your data field for each row from your data source, and it grabs only the unique data values and place them in here, and it will place those unique data values row by row. So here's an example. Over here on the left, I have a little snippet of my data source, and this data source basically has data in it that shows revenue and the product and a quantity that was generated for a particular region, which is over here. And as you can see, for each row in this data table or data source, you're going to have multiple revenue transactions that occur within each region. Sometimes you're going to have multiple transactions per region. So here is a small little pivot table that I created, and I'll show you this live in a second. This is the dialog box I was talking about. When you create a pivot table, you'll have this dialog box in your worksheet. In the upper portion of this dialog box, you're going to have a list of your data fields, which are grabbed from your data source. And down below are your pivot tables areas. Again, there's 4 areas. One is filters, one is columns, one is values, and one is rows. Today, we're only going to be discussing the rows values area. For this particular tutorial or example, I want to be able to summarize in my pivot table by region only. So I'm going to grab this data field called region, and I'll plop it into this area down here for the rows. And as I do that, it will generate this small little pivot table, and it'll only grab the unique values only from your data source. So let's go over to my Excel spreadsheet, and in here is your pivot table, and here's this dialog box. Now when I take this data field called region and put it into this rows area down here, this pivot table will get generated. There's 2 ways that you could grab a field up here and place it into any one of these areas. You could either click on this checkbox, or you can hover over the field, do a left click, and drag it down here. And I'll show you both ways right now. Watch what happens over here in the pivot table section. Once I click on region, as you can see, it generates this pivot table. The other way is by hovering over it, left click, and drag it down to your rows area. It does the same thing. There's two ways that you could do that. Again, once you place a field from up here into the rows area, what it's going to do is it's going to go to your data source and grab the unique values only for that particular field and place them into this table over here, and it's going to summarize it by row. As you can see, the unique values are placed in individual rows. So that's how the pivot tables areas work for the rows value area only. In my future parts to how pivot tables work, I will discuss these other areas for you. So I want to thank you for stopping by today, and I appreciate you supporting my channel. And again, in the future, you will see more videos on this particular subject, which is basically creating pivot tables and dashboards. And you could go to this URL right here, and basically this URL will point you to my YouTube channel, and I have separate playlists. And this playlist is for pivot tables and dashboards. I'll also put this URL in the video description below. I want to thank you again for stopping by today. I look forward to doing more tutorials for you, and I hope you learned something today. And if you found this helpful, please share it with people that you feel will benefit by it. Again, thanks for stopping by today, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye now.